Today is Saturday, August 4th, and we have Andy Stapleton, and he's going to show us some cool stuff.
Okay.
We can read it here, webinar number 31B.
All right. Well, for those that haven't been up on Dev Roadmaps, I wrote a couple of blogs up there now dealing with some classes. As my experimentation in classes grow and my knowledge base grows, I'm kind of sharing this with y'all. I come from old school. Give me direct access to the database. I'll do anything we want. Basically, in the Clarion world where I come from, the use of classes, even though I have wrote some, I avoided them like the plague because, in my opinion, all they were moving the straight inline code that I was already doing to another, code base that I had to include in the original app. So it was just nothing more than what I would consider a pain in the backside. And most of it was kludgy and didn't work as well as what I wanted it to. Didn't work as well at all. So it's not like I didn't have any experience with classes. I didn't have any pleasant experience with classes. Let's put it to you that way. What happened is that when I moved the database to the cloud for the chatter, the chat box, obviously the folks that were not on the same continent as ourselves had issues with when they switched from place to place that it would just be absolutely horrendously slow as it tried to generate the records straight from the database to the screen. So I said, okay, well, I know how to do an array structure, which we'll show you one of those right now. This is an array structure here, and I know how to make an array of that structure. So what I'll do is I'll read everything into an array, and I'll then throw it to the screen, and that works out pretty nicely. Okay, the problem with that is that you have the data there, but you still have to use a lot of jumping around, moving around, and things like that in order to do the updates, changes, deletes, adds, the whole 9 yards. So in talking with Stephen in our nice little group here one evening, I asked him point blank, what is the advantage of using a class of an array of classes versus an array of structures? And he referred me to Peter Holman's OOP documents. In discussing it a little bit, he didn't, there wasn't a whole lot there, but as I was reading through them and going back and forth with the documents, those documents over there, and if anybody needs them or something like that, holler, we'll get them up to where you can download them. But they were on the WINDEV group. They may be in the WX Live. If they're not, we'll see if Arnold can get them for us up there. But they give a pretty good idea of how to encapsulate or basically make an object of the entire record. Okay. Now, what advantage of that? Nothing. If that's all you're going to do with it is just make a listing of the record and here it is, Merry Christmas, you're not really gaining anything. But the deal is when I was looking at his code or looking at Peter Holman's code and seeing what he's doing, that's when I had that little mini programming epiphany. And what that means is that, bottom line, I can now create a class, and this is the news rec class. This is your news messages when you're in the chatterbox, what you see. And that class is going to have certain things. This is the actual record. And like I said, if that's all you're going to do, don't do it because you're not really gaining anything. But where we get into the advantages of these classes is when we start doing things for each record. i.e., I have a prime procedure, I have a before update, and I have an after update. For those that went through and listened to Pete Halstead's Browse Form Manager class teachings, this is what I would consider one level up from there, where the Browse Form Manager teachings or that class there manages the entire board's browse form with the records directly from the database. This is going to do it for one single record in the database. So we do that, and then I have the record structure, and I have what file name it is and what string. Now this method has certain things with it. For those that don't know classes, you have members and you have properties. Properties is things that you define for it, which I don't think I have for this one. No, just the properties are these to identify those. But I do have different members. These are the procedures within the class. All they are is simple little deals, and we're going to go through this. Rec save. Rec save is one. We got rec refresh. We have rec add, change, and delete. So what we've got here, you
declare them all at the very top, right?
You don't declare the methods at the top. The only thing up here at the top is these are callback procedures that I use in the actual forms. You remember in the Browse Form Manager, you wanted to prime some things on the form before you sent it to be saved. Or you wanted to do something like I need to assign. I can do it one of two ways. Either I can do it as what they call the properties by assigning, say, the news group sysid. That's the news group. I have a GLO. I have a global variable for the news group you currently clicked on. Okay. Well, I have to assign that before you add a new message or a new record to the news message file. Well, I would assign that in the prime procedure on a new one. Okay? That's where I'm going to assign that. Not in here.
Wow.
Because if I have to do any manipulation, when I come here, I'm on a single record. Okay? So kind of skip by that, and I'll show you how that works. But basically, what I'm doing here is defining the record structure. I'm defining what file it is and what field is the primary field ID for it. And then I'm defining each of the actions that I can do for that record, one record. Saving the record, add, changing, and deleting, and refreshing the data of the record. That's what I'm doing here. Okay? So, imagine taking a form for all us old Clarion folks, and the form is now all in here without the edit fields. You've got the record that you're going to work with. You've got the add, change, and delete you're going to work with. To add, change, and delete the the record, and then it's done. That's all in here. Okay? Now, in an array, when you put this into an array, what does that mean? That means each array element that you have in that array also has that property. So whatever record I'm on in the array has the add, change, delete, and refresh property. Add, change, and delete, refresh procedure that I can call for that record only. And it's tied to that record. Okay? If there get to be any confusions, holler. Okay? And we're going to go through each piece of this and you'll understand what I mean. Now there's some tricks. Rec save is the only property or the only method that I have exposed. The add, change, and delete are all private. You don't get to go call them directly. You don't need to. You call the rec save and you tell it what action you want. That's the add, change, or delete action is what it is. Just like the old Clarion, where you have the global request, global response. Okay? How does this differ from the Clarion ABC File Manager class? The File Manager class from 6.3 does a very halfway in between. Okay? Because you'll see what that means is when we get to the table and the form, you'll see why that's different right there because of what they do. They come in about 50%. They don't go the entire way because they don't do the array at all. Now, the other part, doing it, you're still setting which record you want to it. Things like this, you don't have the right record. So you'll see what I mean here in a little bit, Tony. Okay. The thing that you need to look at is some of the procedures that we have or some of the functionality we have in here. Object. Object is this object, what you're working with right now. This object is called newsrec class. So that object, when I specify it, I'm saying do myself. Okay? The double colon is for global fields within this object. So I'm telling it to just to do things with that object and that file name. Memory to file. Memory to file is taking the memory array or the array record and put it to the file fields that's associated to it. So it's just the same as your screen to file, file to screen. Okay? That is the difference right there. You're saying, oh, take it from memory and put it to my file fields. Okay? That's what that's for. Then I'm going to find out from my method within rec add, because I've sent it a equate. This is my my action type is equate add. I'm going to send that to rec add. Or if it's change, I'm going to again, I'm going to say memory to file to the file name, and I'm going to send it to change, and I'm going to have it refresh. Okay? Each one of these is methods that I'm dealing with. Now here's the cool part. You notice that I'm not redoing the array. I'm not refreshing the entire array in this. And this is where the advantage comes in. And bottom line, this is where I kind of had the little epiphany. When you're working with cloud databases, when you're working with remote databases, the biggest thing that you have to deal with is minimizing impact on your network. Minimizing impact of going back and forth to the database to keep the amount of traffic down. The amount of traffic down means you can have more users for the same database because your bandwidth. It's not the disk space is 90% of your problem. It's not the server that's 90% of your problems on bigger databases. It's the bandwidth to get in and out. Period. Okay? I do not need to do that, Stephen. Should that be message sysid to ensure it? No, I don't need to do that. I don't, because I'm already on that record. And I'll show you when I get to those two pieces. You'll see what I mean. The refresh record is different. I have to send that to that. But let me get down here and you'll see what I'm saying. In the refresh record, here's the difference between this one. The refresh record says, I want to go back out to the database and I want to get a new look at this one record in the class. So I'm telling myself, okay, I'm sending it the primary key sysid. If that's less than 0, you're out of here. You sent the wrong one. Otherwise, go to the file name, do an hreadseek first. This is a select. This is a get me that first record. The file name, the message sysid, and the one I want to get. If I find it, you go backwards, file to memory. This now takes the record that I got back from that refresh and puts it into the class variables, matching 1 to 1. As long as the names match, they will match. They will fill in the values. The names have to match, though. Okay? And we're going to take this to a couple of levels. I'm going to show you how to do this, but this is a simple one. I just do an hread seek first. I get back the record if I find it, and I update the variables in my class at the top. That file to memory there is now filling in these fields. That's what it's filling in. Okay? Now, let's go to recadd. Recadd is very, very simple. For each record is one class. You're absolutely right, Frank, and I'll show you how to get all that together here in a minute. We're going to go through each of the pieces of this, and then we'll go to the what I call the wrapping class. Recadd, very simple. I'm going to do an add to that file name. If it's true, I got it, and I return it. I'm done. Now, in here, I'm going to do probably a couple more things. One, this is going to be a new one, so it needs to be added to the array, which is going to be done because it's already part of the array, and I've got it back. Now, ret change, we got to do a couple things. We do the same thing with it. We do an h modify to it, and we return the ret value equals true. Okay, delete. That's going to be fairly simple. We're just going to do an h delete, so we're done with that, and we're going to destroy this particular one. Is what we're going to do. Okay. So that's very simply put, that's all we do. Now, these are static. I've actually got the class as you pick it up. And what we're going to do after I go through each one of these pieces and we discuss it a minute, I'm actually going to do this for the members side because it's still selecting everything directly from the database on the refresh. I'm going to create a class for the members. I'm going to put it together on this thing, and I'm going to show you how it works. Okay? So now, let's go to the wrapper class on this, what I call the wrapper class. And what this is the class that we do to get the array elements in. This is called news class. I have certain private IDs on this. One, the user ID, the news group, whatever message filter I want, and the max message that I just last fetched. Okay? Those are private properties that I'm going to update as we come through this thing. This is what you're talking about here, Arnold. Why, you know, the other parts of this. Then I've got an array message is an array of that news rec class. That's the record, the news record that we were just in. That is an array of these. That's an array of this class here. All right. If you guys need to stop me at any time, feel free to do so. So I've created properties for the user. I've created properties for the news groups. And I created properties for a message filter as well as the last, have a property of the last one. Now, here's some of the cool part here, guys. Difference between global, private, and public in the classes. Global is global for the entire class, so it can be used everywhere in the class. That's why you have to use the double colons before the value. Private means it's only in the class and you cannot reference it outside the class. I can't do the class name dot and see it. I can't do anything with it. Public means is I can get to it outside the class. If y'all
Andy, where are you? And Andy, can you repeat that because your sound went away for a second? Oh man. Are you guys still there, or is it this Andy? Andy, you dropped out. Well, looks like we're gonna have to delete that section. Andy, can you come back? but you dropped out. Can't hear or see your screen. Right, there's also protected members. Hey, Steven. There you go, Andy.
We are having thunderstorms coming back through here right now, so if I drop in and out, I will try to get back as quickly as I can, but that's what happened. Okay? So, keep me, just understand. Yeah, no, Belinda's gone. I don't know about the protected members yet. I do not wish to go through that quite yet. So let's just talk about what I do know now, and we'll go on further. But Steve can help you with this, okay? So bottom line is I've got all the properties dealing with this, and here's what I've got. This is the statement that actually pulls back the messages that you have either not read or want to see in a particular news group. Okay, that's what fetch news does. This is a function. Now, this is the absolutely cool part, and there's two things to this that I want to show you. We can, the select statement is the select statement. I don't care, but there's two things that you want to see. That DS message is one of the things that I really want you to pay attention to. Okay, and this is where things start separating big time, Tony, between Clarion's file manager class and this. This is where the life separates big time. Okay? The data source is, in essence, and this is used everywhere outside of Clarion. Data source is the repository, a dynamic repository of what you're putting the data in. In other words, it is the pointer, set of pointers to the records that you bring back. So if I do a multi-table select that encompasses more than one table, in Clarion I usually have to create a dummy table to hold the results. I have to create something to hold the selection results to it. I have to have a record buffer to put that into. Well, a data source creates that on the fly. I have the entire record buffer on the fly. Okay? Now, once I have that record buffer on the fly, okay, what am I going to do with it? I got one or two choices, and this is where life gets really cool. Number one is I'm doing the execute of the statement, which is fine, but you see this little statement here, filetoArray. You can see that I have the array of the messages. This is that array of those class, of that message class. This is the array of the class items and the data source. So literally, I have put the entire data source of whatever I selected into that array in one statement. In one single statement. Otherwise, I would have to do this entire statement to do exactly the same thing. To do exactly the same thing. So in one line of code, I eliminated those lines of code. And I'm sure there's going to be some and some typing, but let's go over two things with this. And I really want you to kind of understand a couple of pieces of this thing. I am not advocating that that's all you need. Okay? If I'm doing like that 13 million records in the test environment that Glenn Rathke has, I would not do a file to array. Okay, I would not. Is the array an array of pointers or the actual elements for each record? Actual elements for each record for each class. It is the actual values of the data that I retrieved. So it's not a pointer. I would not advocate, well, that's where I'm getting to, Frank. That's exactly where I'm getting to. I would not advocate to do a file to array unless you know the approximate array size that you're going to deal with. All right. Number one is that anything over where you know that you're going to retrieve, say, 5,000 records, 1,000 records, something like that, you do not want to do the file to array. It will take excessive amount of time. What you want to do then is exactly the same way that I did the background processing of the 13 million records. Okay? And I will put out later on for those that have got the Glenn Rathke stuff, I'm going to do this for that same 13 million records. And you'll see how what we'll end up doing is set one additional property, or we'll send one additional flag to it, which will say, oh, well, if total, do this, else do it, do it in the background. So in essence, when I do it in the background, I'm going to do two things. Number one, I'm going to say this is all the records I want to retrieve. So in other words, if I say, listen, these guys don't need more than 5,000 records or 10,000 records, I don't care if there's 10 million in there, then I'm going to limit it to the 10 million records. Okay? Or the 10,000 or 5,000 records. They won't get the entire 10 million. Number two is that if the records come back with more than that, one of the statements I'm going to put on the screen, one statement that this will return, is saying there are more than 10,000 records. Please redefine your query. Okay? And what that does is then also eliminates the fact of how many records you're pulling in one shot. Okay? You're not going to clog up the bandwidth by pulling 13 million records back, even though you could. Okay? So anyway, since right now we don't have that many records, I wanted to do this. Later on, believe me, I'm going to be changing to a background process. It ain't gonna. That's the reason why I left the code here. But I wanted to see you. I wanted to see how see that you saw this file to array, because it's great stuff. Okay. So now let's go down and see how all this put together on the screen. Okay. This is the news message screen that we're all dearly in love with, and we know. Okay. And the thing about it is what I want to do now is I'm going to go through basically the same approach that I did before. Get down there. And I'm going to fill the data. The difference between filling the data now from before versus now is instead of doing the execute query and the entire statement, which is what I moved off into the class, I am now clearing out the message, and I'm going for each DS message of news message. I forgot. Let's go to the top here. We got to look at the top. Sorry about that, guys. Because I really need to see the top end of this thing, where I declare everything. Okay. All right. Here's what I've done. If you remember right, there was a couple of things that I had. Number one is I'm calling this mrec is an instance, or give me a instantiation, as they call it, create, it's the news rec class. Now that is a single instance of one of the records. Okay, and I'm going to use that on the form. Okay, that's what that's for, is in order to handle the form, so I have all the fields for the form. The news itself, the creation of the news itself is done here. News message is news class. That is the biggest one. And then you can see here where I assign the property of who you are when you log in of the user sysid. This is assigning the property of the user sysid. Okay? That's what that's doing. So when I go back to the class here, it's already done. I've instantiated this class. And the next thing I need to do is what? Well, what I need to do is fetch all the data, right? So, I am, I think it's in the form. Let me get, yeah. Let me see here. I know I got it. Just a second, guys. Let's see. Let's get rid of that one because we don't need it. Let's find the call to fetch news. Ah, there it is. I got it under the global fetch messages. So we got fetch news. This is where I'm calling all of the procedures to go fetch all of the news messages you haven't read yet. All that does is call the news class and executes this statement and fills that array. That's all it does. Okay? Now in the screen again, going back to the news screen, I have done two things. Number one, for a record, a single class record, I've defined it and I've told it the prime procedure is prime record. That is my local procedure called prime record, which is where I'm assigning. You can see where I've got mrec dot, the news group sysid property, message from property, which is you, a parent if I've got it, and if that's greater than that, I go ahead and set the message title and go from there. And this basically sets the record structure of that class as you add a new record. Okay? The filling of the record itself, all I'm doing there is looping through for each message of the news group. I am looping through that and doing exactly the same thing as if I did the select. So I'm filling in the tables and the add childs and the deletes. We're going to get something a little bit easier than this one, but it's because I want to do several things dealing with the tree table. But I'm going to show you a much more simpler one where you're just assigning stuff and it's basically gone away. It's real easy. So I've loaded up the table with the information, and then when you hit and you want to do a new record or a new item, you'll notice that each one of these are no longer linked to the file. Where this is linked to is directly to the variable. It is linked here. Okay. Let's see here just a second. It is linked here to the title, the different names of the variables themselves. Okay. Let me show you. Let's see, where can I? So when you get done with this and we hit the save, this is all I'm doing in the save. I'm assigning the variables. This is the variables of the class is what I'm assigning to, and I'm doing a rec save, equate, and telling it to refresh. Then I tell it to refill the data. Now, refilling the data is only going to refill it from what? The array. That's all it's going to do. It's not going to refill it from anything else, only from the array. Okay, now you probably got a little bit overwhelmed there for a sec. Okay. I know that to be a fact because I was kind of in the same boat. Let me see if I can find something a little simpler to deal with. But let's see here. Did I do anything in here? No, it was in my budget manager.
I'm just breathing deeply, Andy.
Yes, I know. Trying to find one where I can show you. This is it. Yep. That's not it. It's transactions is what I want. Okay. Now I'm going to show you one a lot simpler. Okay. This one here has got tables. Then we'll go through and create one for the members here. But I want to show you how simple it is dealing with when you're not dealing with a tree table. Tree table is a little bit more difficult, but I'm gonna show you this one here. Okay. This is my budget manager program, and I've created a transaction class for it. And this deals with the transactions that I have. Let's go down and take a look at it real quick. And what I did was I created all the file classes in a subdirectory, so they're all separate. And that would be in there. Okay. Now my trans class, you can see it's exactly the same. Before, after, there's the actual fields, the table name, and the primary key value. I've got a few procedures before and afterwards, but everything else is exactly the same. There is absolutely no difference in what I'm doing. Absolutely none. Okay? Now, let's go through what I've done here in the trans class. Now this one here, what I did, and this is the kind of another one that's kind of cool. I've got the entire trans, I got the checks, and I got the deposits. I got all three, right? So normally, in order to do this or looking for this, I would have three different statements. I only did it in one. Everything's the same here. We're doing the properties of what I'm looking for. I'm setting different properties for it, but here's my fetch data. I select everything from my fetch data, and now instead of doing the file to an array, I am doing a for each, and I'm assigning each of the values. Here's the key point about it. If I know this to be a check, I add it to all the trans. If it's a check, I add it to my check. If it's a deposit, I add it to my deposits. So now I've got all three arrays set up exactly from one select statement. So if I'm separating it because of criteria, you know, that type of thing, then I can do that in one select statement just knowing how to switch back and forth. Okay? Got a few other things for getting beginning balances and stuff like this, but let's go to the form because this is kind of the point that I want to make. In here, I got the same TRA is my transrec class. That's for my single record. I still have that there. And I call and tell it to fetch the data. I assign to the property the account, and I fetch the data. Now let's look and see what I've done to the table. This is where some of the things starts clicking from the differences in life. Number one, my content now is by variable. My content is by variable. It's not by programming or file query. It is by variable. My source is the transaction. My source is the transaction array. So I come down here. When I open this up, this is everything that I can get to in the global area. And down here at the bottom, I have trans, and I have all three of them. You see my array checks, my deposits, and my trans. So if I do array trans, then I have the array trans, and this is the sys-ID, as you can see, for the current element of what it is. Sys-ID is right there. Now I have the primary key variable. Okay? Everybody with me on this so far? Or are we totally confused? If I look at each one of the columns and I look at the links to it, this is the array the class records. This is the class fields in one record that I'm dealing with. You notice that you can still see even the after update procedure, before update procedure, and prime procedures is in there. Those are properties. I could actually set those properties record by record if I wanted to. Right now, I'm just doing the things that I want, which is all of the fields that this is hooked to. SysID for here, date, check ID, sub, on down the line. Every one of them is signed. Okay? So now, I've got this entire control here. That entire control here is assigned based upon that array element. So instead of having to loop through it or something, it's just there. It's just there. We're going to do that same thing over there with the members when we get done with this right here. If I come down to my form and I look at each one of these also now, they are linked to the TRA variables. You remember up there top, I said TRA is my transrec class. One single instance of the class. And I assigned every one of those fields to each one of these here. So each one of those are set up correctly. Okay? The save, you go to the code on it, this was the original code that I had. Switch, go through all of this stuff here. Try to go through all of this code here to figure out what was necessary to be done. Now, all I do is fill the bud balance and tell it to be done. I'm going to just type in, very simply put, TRA rec save. EQU. And true to refresh it. That's the new code. That's all I have to do. Now, if I have to change some things, I have to modify some things, I have to tell it to do this, that, or the other on there, it's easy to do inside that class because it will work the same everywhere. All right. So let's now go through that on our news chatter. What I'm going to do now is inside my class here, I'm going to create the members class that we need. In here, I have the member group and I have the members. Okay? And what I want to do is take those members and I want to make a class out of it and I want to set it up. What I've done here is I've already created a base set of classes. Okay? And the base set of classes allows me just to pick them from a directory, get it out of another directory, out of my repository directory, and do this. One thing that I found, they do have a hell of a difficult time to do this out of the SCM. I do have them saved there for safety's sake, but it's easier to pull it from here. So I've got a base record class and I got a base management class. The record class is what I'm looking for first. If you guys want this, I will put them out there so you can download them from me. Okay? So open up the base record class and you can see I've already defined certain things. This is all the things I've already defined, so I don't have to rewrite all of this code.
Just okay? Kind of like your code brick of...
Yeah. And I actually have it in code bricks too. I actually have each smaller section in code bricks as well. I have them in both. Okay? So now what I need to do is move all of these fields over here to the members. So I kind of cheat is what I do with that. And so I go straight to the database and I cheat. Show you. Let me connect to my world.
I guess you could always write a little program to dump it out for you in the right format, huh?
Yeah, you probably could, but don't do it that often. So.
But you do it for every table, right?
Yes, I do it for every
so
table.
So if you have 50 tables in an app, probably be worth it.
It's going to take you a little while.
Yeah.
But that's the only time you'll ever have to do something for it. So it's kind of like, do I have to build a database? Yes. Do I have to type in every field of every table in the database? Yes. Okay, well,
that's
you
part
can
of the work
cheat
you
a
get
little
paid
bit.
for.
It's just part of the work you have to do. That's all there is to it. Now, you can use the UML that comes with this and generate those classes, but all it's going to do is generate the one piece of the public class here of the definition. You still got to type and put in all the rest of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I felt it was easier not to use that and just create a base set of management and rec and go from there. So what I've got now is a base record class, and I do a save as, and I'm going to call this members rec class. So I know it's the record of the members. Okay? And I've saved that there, and I can do a save all. That way I know I've got everything done. I'm good to go. And I come in here, and let's get into my schema, public. And I'm going to go down to my tables, and I'm going to go down to my members, and I'm going to cut and paste. All right. It is right. Okay. And my DBA file name is members, and memsysid is my primary key field. Okay. It may not like image. That one out of there for the time being. Okay. Now we'll scroll down here, and we got to make sure that we got as this needs to be memsysid. Now the thing about it is that is taking it from the upper part of the public variable, so it is the current one is what it is. Get those two, and this one has to be, since I'm in the primary key of that field, I've got to, I wonder why it does that sometimes. memsysid. All right. Now, here again, I've done everything. I've done the exact same one. Defined what I wanted in that class, laid out all the information. The rec save is done because I've changed just the two things that needed. I have the refresh rec. It's done because it's, it's just set up that way. Rec add it to the file name. I'm pretty much there. I'm done with this piece of the puzzle. Okay? That's all it's taken. One class per record, one class per table. So there's really two classes, Frank, all the time. This one, Frank, this came from my Postgres, is where those names came from. They got a match. So let's get out of this and save that members rec class. And I wished it would put it where I wanted it. but it don't.
I was wondering when you did the save as, it kind of had the location.
I missed it. I figured that out last night, you know, a few days ago, and I forgot to do it on this one right here. So I basically got to come back in here and put it here and just drag it over and put it back in there where it belongs. Okay, and I'll do that. So now I've got the rec class here. Okay, and now I got to create the parent class of it to do the management of those records. So I'm going to open up again. And I'm going to get the base management class because that's what I've got for the record structure. Okay. And I'm going to.
So when you do the file save as here, does that
save as
right down there, that location, is that?
Yeah. I'm gonna put it right here in the custom folder, which is messages classes.
Okay.
And this one here is called members class. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get rid of this stuff because I don't know that we're going to need it yet. My array mem is array of members rec class. So now I have the array. Let's go ahead. It's just a dummy class where I'm going to list up everybody, so it's not going to matter that much. So I'm going to come in here and there's my members. Let's drop that down. Let's go down here. Members class, members rec class. This is what I want right here. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the properties because I don't need them. Okay. Now, the only thing I need to do now is I need to create a method to get that data. I need to get that data. That's all there is to it. So, in my members class, I'm going to create a new method, and I'm just going to call it the same as everything else, fetch data. And there it is. There's my new method to get the data. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to go ahead and use my code bricks that I've had for a long time, my SQL with loop. I'm going to put it right there. And this is going to be dsmem, and it should be remote con. And now I've got that all set, and I'm going to select the data. Here again, I go back to my select, and I'm going to copy that again. I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to say select. Put that stuff right there. Again, the old cut and paste. And we'll get rid of the stuff I don't need. Now, since Postgre is case sensitive, that's why you don't see the upper and lower cases stuff in here. Okay, guys? It's not that I don't do it. It's not that I don't like it. In fact, I don't. I prefer to have upper and lower case, but since Postgre is case sensitive, I don't have that option. Okay, and then from members. Okay, take that out. There is no parameters to this statement at the moment, so I take these stuff out, and I don't need this because all I'm going to do is file to array, and I'm going to say my array mem and dsmem, my data source is what I'm setting to it. That's all I'm doing there. So let's get rid of this one so that way if the error shows up, it's solved. We're done. Okay. Let's do a save all. Close that. I put them one on top of each other. That's me. This is the way I do it. You can do it any way you want. The other thing is that you can see that I have a actual separate file in my screen here. This is a deal where I put the file data classes in. I separate them from the other classes that are just global to the system. You can see I have some global classes through here. That's what the plus signs are for. This is my data classes. I keep them separated. That way it's easier to manage. Okay? Because if I had 700 classes in here, it'd be hell to manage. So the idea is to get them a little bit straightened out that way. Okay? So now let's go to the members here. As you can see that is my listing of the members. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change those. Okay, and I'm going to load in the new members. Is this a table? Oh, this is a TBD contacts. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and dump this one entirely. And we're just going to put a simple table in there instead. And this is display found in a file or an existing query. Display the data found in an existing variable. That's what I want. So I'm going to open up my global variables, and what am I going to find? I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to find nothing at the moment. And I'll tell you why, because I haven't defined it yet. So I'm going to go in here. I've got this news class. I'm going to go ahead and mem is member class. That opens that up for me to be able to use it throughout my system. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't go get the members. It doesn't do anything at all. All it does is instantiate that class so I can use it. If I want to get the members at this time, I would do a mem.fetchData. That's what I would do, and I would do that. And we're not going to do that here because we don't really need to. So let's go back here and let's try this again because we want it to be able to do that. And we say we run an existing variable. Go back here. Now you can see that we have the mem in there. When I open that up, I have the array. I'm going to say, yep, give me that. What fields do I want out of this? Well, I only want the member name is all I want in there. And we say, okay. It's a read-only table, no editable. We can even set it up to be as no selection. And we hit OK. Now let's move that table actually in something. Let's look at our description of that table. Contents, we got the array mem, so we need the sysID in there. We'll go ahead and put the mem sysID in there, so that way we have a stored variable. And if we look at the field and look at the link on it, you'll see that it is linked directly to the system. Now, the one thing I do is I'll always add in the sysID. So I'm going to add that in, and I'm going to say it's not visible. It's a numeric value, and I'm going to link it to the mem sysID. That way I always have it. Okay? Now let's see if we got anything to do here. Yes, at the top, you see I got a fetch contacts. That now changes. We don't have fetch contacts. What we have now is we're going to now fetch the data. So we're going to do mem.fetchData. And a table display array mem.ta init. Okay. And what this should do now is just work right off the bat. Nugget compiler. What do we got here? Oh. Sorry. That'll do it. Blew that one, didn't I? Let's try that again. There's all our names. Every one of them. All of them in there just like that. that quick.
I guess that's not so bad.
What do you mean it's not so bad? Turn on the mics.
All right. Turn on the mics. Clear, remove, change, mute all. Oh, let's just turn them all on. Let's see. Enable. All right. Mics are all on.
All right.
Bring these guys on.
In PostgreSQL, can one be constant in using upper and lowercase constant user? Yes, you can, but you got to put double quotes around everything, Frank.
Really?
That's right. Because what happens is if you just define PostgreSQL, if you just create a table in PostgreSQL with no quotes around it, even if you do the upper lowercase, as you can see there, it'll lowercase everything on it automatically.
Oh, I see.
So the only way to have the upper lower is to actually put double quotes around it. That's what makes it totally case sensitive. As an FYI. Okay. Everybody but Tony can talk. Yee-hee.
Do you want me to turn Tony off?
No. Anybody got any other questions? Did I have to modify any of my... No, I didn't. Frank, I did not have to modify any of my code to use PostgreSQL.
Guess what, Andy?
Uh-oh. Oh, he can talk. Oh,
you're in trouble now. Sometimes the old farts up in the balcony can figure out how to use the microphone.
All right. Talk to me. Ask questions, harass. That's what this is for.
I think I get it. I think Arnold just wants you to. I think Arnold just needs you to put it as access : table name dot.
Key.
So you want me to do level benign stuff all over the
place?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I'd rather use English. Even though that not all of us speak English, we can probably understand it better than that. I never did understand it. If not, level benign, huh?
Yeah. Well, I also think this would the early part of this would seems to me like it would be a very good plug compatible replacement for Clarion's in-memory driver for things like the validation tables and stuff that we use. We want to load them up once and use them everywhere.
Absolutely, those in-memory table things, and I've used them. The data source piece is absolutely slick.
Hey Frank, your mic's too close to your mouth. You can hear it breathing.
Yeah, because I don't have to define. We use PLF tables. You remember I used to use the dummy tables, or things like this to find them everywhere.
Right.
Basically, this does not have to do. The data source is you can load it in there. Now here's one thing, and I'll show you this on the other, because this is where things kind of get, you can take it even further than what I'm showing you here. In the, let's see, yes, that's in the transaction is where I want to be. In the transaction class, in my transaction class, transrec class, you'll notice that I have a different name. I have C sub item description in there as part of the fields in that class, right? That's actually from a totally different table. Okay? That's not from my transaction table. That is a description of the category that this transaction should go under. Okay? So what happens here is that in my trans class, when I do the fetch, you can see where I'm doing an inner join on the category subs on that, and I'm pulling back that record structure, right? Okay. That means I'm actually assigning that right there is what I'm doing. I'm assigning it, and it doesn't belong to that table.
Let me make sure I want to clarify and make sure I understand this correctly. That data source, when you do that, are you saying that when you do the select statement, that it's actually going to create a data source internal structure that matches your select statement?
That is correct.
Because right now, I mean, when we do that, and you know what, we have to create a dummy table to hold the and if it doesn't match precisely, it blows up.
I don't have that problem.
Cool.
And literally, when I create all these fields here, Tony, I grab this line right here and I just build it straight down the line. Is what I do. I don't fiddle around. Okay. So I can the thing that I've gained from this exercise and work through this thing is the fact now that I can literally denormalize the presentation of the data to the customer.
Hey Tony, can you back your mic away from your mouth?
I think it may be Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
I can denormalize and present to the user whatever I want them to see. Okay? Yet still keep the record structure and the functionality that I want to keep things updated properly.
Yep.
Okay. So it's pretty cool that way. It allows me some great flexibility that I hadn't had before. Okay, and nothing, like in Clarion, because even if you did present it in that, PLF table or dummy table or whatever it is, you couldn't very well. You still have a boatload of code to go back and update it with, because it has to go back to the original tables. I can literally put 2 or 3 tables in here, and because of the record structure, I can have it update 2 or 3 tables at the same time, based upon the transrec class. I can say, oh, if I got a sysid for this, go update that, go update that, go update that. I can do multiple ones of these if I want to. I can have a parent and a child if I want to. Don't know that I'd do that, but I could. Okay? Because I can literally tell it here and have the children here of array of let's see. I can't.
So can I do this to a view from a view too? Then.
Yes. So I can do an array of trans splits, and that array trans splits then would have the array of the 2 or 3 splits of this transaction into different accounts. See what I'm saying? Or did that one just blow you all away?
I just turned him off. Let me turn him back on.
Tony.
Tony, just don't breathe into the mic so much. Hold your breath. Tony, can you hear us now?
Yeah. So, the thing about
you turned me off.
Yeah, you get you back on now.
Okay. Are you sure it was me that was breathing into the mic?
Not anymore.
No, it's trying. It's trying.
Okay. So, by putting the array in there, I could actually have the array of the children in the splits inside the same structure and keep them as the parent and the child. I don't know that I'd do that on a large scale, but like, small items or something like this, like in the instance of, I'll give you one thing that we used to do, insurance. You get a payment of $48.58, and that's split between 4 different items within their policy. Well, I could put the array of those splits inside the record structure of the original record, and they all stick together across the board.
Kind of like a view, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it opened up so many doors to be able to do things that I hadn't done before. The second thing that it does, for the most part, unless you're getting into tree tables and things like this, for the most part, screen-wise, this is absolutely butt simple. Now, here's the cool part, and I'm going to show you this right now, because I need to get rid of this anyway, but I'm going to go back up to the class here, the member class. You notice I did the filetoArray instead. I'm going to change this right here. The member name's there. And what I'm going to do is...
Hey, Tony, I'm going to turn you off if you don't mute.
I'm going to do this.
Thank you.
Plus mem nickname. I believe this should work. I'll find... No, not double quotes. They're going to be single quotes, Andy. We'll know in a minute if I blow up, if I got it right or not. We'll find out here in a minute. As mem name. Okay. Now what I did there was basically told it to append and put the nickname in with the member name. Okay. Let's hit the go button. I guess I did blow it up. Didn't like something here. We can figure this out pretty quick here.
Andy, it's Steve.
Yeah.
Another way of doing that would be to have a property which was the member full name, member with nickname.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with, what you're really
right.
talking about is dealing with business objects rather than just tables. So it's kind of what you've been talking about. Another way of saying it would be you deal with, yeah, you're able to create classes, class structures that really relate to the business objects that you're dealing with. And then in the class you can have properties that allow you to present the data or update the data in a way that makes sense in the system you're in, rather than having to know the details of the individual member fields.
True. You are correct. Let's see, I'm going to do the select statement over here. So I want to get this right to show you how it does it, that I don't have to change anything in the code. So I'm just going to do it over here. Let's see if that works. Oh, I know why.
So you people who just want to go and change the SQL all the time, it'd be simpler just to create a property.
Yeah, because that's
and link the property.
Because it's, hey, I'm a SQL guy, dude.
I know. That's what I'm trying to get to show you, that there are better ways.
Okay, so okay, I'll let you show me after we get done with this. Because I'm not sure how I'm going to do a filetoArray to a property.
No, you don't.
Or would I do that before?
You do, well, all you do
I'd
is
have to do each individual one.
No, in your news record class, add a property.
Okay.
The property is called name with nickname. So if you create a
So
property,
in here?
No, yeah, but if you, the way
the other one.
In the member class, not the members class, no, the
This
other
one
one
here.
Yeah. So you need to create a property, not a member. So right click over here on your properties and create a property.
Okay, so we're going to create a property. New property.
Yeah.
Mem.
Mem with nick or something.
Okay. Mem. Quit that. With Nick. Alright.
And then you just put in what you want. Result is...
That would be mem name.
You should use the columns,
Plus.
but anyway.
Should I?
Well,
Okay.
I got a compiler error before when I didn't. In version 17
Okay.
only, 16 wasn't doing it for me. But it does force
Okay.
it to use this object.
Okay. I will follow instructions.
Well, I don't
What's
know,
the difference between result and rec val? I mean, you can use either one. Or...
Retval? Retval is a variable I put together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Result is you know, in properties you just do the result of exactly what you want it to be.
Okay.
What a property is, Arnold, is a way of getting the value of a member. So you just know nothing in there because it's read-only. It's not a writable one. So
Yeah,
you don't want
okay,
to
so I don't do nothing in there.
So it's a read-only property.
Okay, so now how I've got that there.
And go back to your table.
Okay.
You go to your table and link it to that rather than linking it to the name.
And it would do that automatically?
Yeah.
That would be good.
He says it with such conviction.
I do it all the time. Time.
I'm just checking, dude.
No, he said, yeah, with a question mark to you. Like,
oh, okay.
It's like that all the time.
All right, I'm fine with that, dude.
You've lost it. You must have closed it.
I'll find it.
Maybe, yeah. Mm.
So now I come down here and I'm going to take this and I'm going to name it to...
Name with Nick. Where is it?
That right there, right?
Okay.
Okay, so now if I run this,
Mm-hmm.
what I should get
Errors?
is exactly what we had before. I'll be damned. Look at there.
Look at that, eh?
You gotta listen to
Now
Steven
that is
once in a while.
slick.
Huh?
Because I didn't have to do anything.
No, that's what we're talking about, Andy.
Now we're getting slick there. Thank you very much, Stephen. I know, you know, if I ever come to Australia, you come to America, you and me gonna split a bottle of tequila.
I'll go with that. Arnold was asking about what a business object is. See, the business object is really the member, how you want to see the member. In this case, we want to see the member with a name and their nickname together, but you don't store them like that in the table. The table view is member name and nickname as separate objects, separate properties, whereas the business view of member is the name with the nickname together.
I understand.
No, he's explaining to me.
Yeah, but see, you know, him and I have talking on several evenings here, and he's still trying to understand my programming in the first place because he's been listening, you know, getting into this, and then I've been changing stuff right and left now.
That's right. So far, I'm almost up with you.
Yeah, well, I'm just pulling the plug on a couple things here today. So, but I mean, this is neat stuff. I mean, Tony, you have all, you know, coming from the age-old Clarion dude that I know you to be. You can see the possibilities in your program on this. It's amazing what we're going to be able to do. It truly is amazing what we're going to be able to do. Same thing.
You can't do this in Clarion?
No. You can do it, get close. The problem is with Clarion, okay, and I'm bluntly honest about this. It's not that you necessarily can do with it, but you cannot take anything other than a table and assign it to anything other than a file and assign it to the table, unless you hand code it. You and I both
using their built-in templates.
Right. In other words, I can't get the table, throw it on a Clarion screen, and assign it to an array. I can't do that. I got to assign it to a table and assign it to a key, possibly. Or I say it's got nothing, and I hand code everything to deal with that table underneath the covers. To load it, change it,
couldn't you write the same kind of class, SQL class, just like you're doing here?
But why would you? I mean, I'm not disagreeing that it's not possible. I mean, anything's possible with coding.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're going to literally end up spending in Clarion, and I'll guarantee you, between the templates you'll have to write, the class code you have to write, to do this same thing, I would spend probably 2 weeks to 3 weeks to get the class and everything to work nominally. And it would probably take somewhere around 4 to be able to use it on the majority of items that we have. Okay? And I know this because, crap, I've done templates and I've done, you know, both of them. The header sort class, a simple header sort class in Clarion took me a week to get working decently, and it still doesn't work right. I tried to do the simple header sort class where you could tell it what fields or columns to display or not display on the columns. Just as simple as we do here with right mouse clicking and telling it to, you know, I don't want to display this column. Okay? And that took 4 days. And it still doesn't work right. They can literally screw up their column headers. Okay? So, you know, I'm not saying it can't be done, but the way I look at it right now is the stuff that WINDEV has put together and have available for you to use is what Clarion should have done in 3 and 4. Version 3 and 4. It's what they should have done in version 3 and 4. It was too late by 5, dead in the water by 6. Doing it now, why?
Why? Because you've already done it here. Why should I do it there?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Simple. Okay. So, and I'm not downplaying them, but bottom line is that, you know, it's not to downplay everything dealing with soft velocity and Clarion. That's not the purpose. The main purpose is that you've got a tool here that is smart enough to take care of a lot of the functionality. Okay, and it does. Some of the things that I've got in the middle of this thing here. Let's see here.
So
the source to file and file to source, or source to file and file to source. That is absolutely cool. And you have screen to source, and you have screen to source, and you have source to screen. Okay? And let's take a look at those. All right? If we do source to screen, what that's doing there is it's taking the elements or the value of whatever you're seeking or whatever you've got and putting it into the memory array of the record that you have defined. So I don't have to loop through the array or find, you know, I don't have to go through and do a bunch of that stuff. I can just add it with the source to screen. And if I do a screen to source, it's backwards. I can go backwards. I can take whatever values that I have aligned to the array and put it into the array variables by doing screen to source. That loose binding of the actual fields to whatever it's linked to, that actual loose binding is what the killer is. That's the sweet spot. Because it allows you so much flexibility to do things in between that you don't have before. It's just.
So on the source to the screen to source, say in the screen I manipulate different data in data fields, right? Yeah. And say the
now it's linked. You got to remember the field is linked to your array variable.
Okay.
And that's what that does. If I do screen to source, it's saying everything I got on the screen, put it to where it belongs. Now, if it's a file link, then you're going to do screen to file. If it is an array or a global variable or a set of variables you define, you do the screen to source. That's the difference.
So if I have lookups and stuff and it's sending back sysids from different tables, that's what comes back.
Yeah.
Table.
Yeah.
Have you tried
Even though I
running
see
the
something.
debugger? Andy?
Have I tried running the debugger on this?
Yeah, what I've done is stop the debugger on the source to screen and then done a step into. And when you're there classes, you'll see it go into the class and load the properties, the individual properties.
Oh, you can see what they are.
In the background, and it's quite good if you're debugging to see what's going on.
Oh, that's absolutely
it's really
cool.
powerful. That's what it's doing underneath. Instead of you doing it manually, actually transferring that value into the edit field or whatever it is, that's what it's doing. And it's quite clever.
That's what it's doing.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep forgetting that there's a debugger in the world.
Andy, have you tried, instead of returning the sysid from your table, not returning anything, but just returning the index from the table? And what that means is that you've then got a pointer to the class instance that's been selected. So you can pick out things that maybe weren't in the table, but are still.
I haven't gone that
class
far
variable.
yet.
So if you
I hadn't tried that.
Yeah, if you've got a table and you just want to return an index to the table when you do a select as the value, then you can actually use that index into the array that the table's linked to, and then you've got that object available to you. So you can assign.
I'm going to have to explore that with you a little bit.
Yeah, but that's another thing. If you're using classes in a combo where you're only showing one value or something, you can use that index and have them coming out of an array of classes and linked to a property of the class. And then if you come back with the index into the array, you can then assign a dynamic class variable to that thing, and it's a pointer to it basically. And then you've got that, the selected class instance, and you can do what you like with it. It's very powerful.
I'll have to explore that with you. I didn't know that the indexes or the table index value would be matched up to the array index value.
I think it works with combos. I'm not clear with. I think it does with tables as well.
Okay, something to explore. Something to explore. So, what else do we need to go over, guys, before everybody has a...
Frank has a question there for you, I think.
Yeah, Frank. Question: you breeze by this relating to Glenn and believe a web server with a large number of users, one would have to be aware of the number of records in the database. Yes. If I'm doing a large number of records, there is a deal that I've done for training with Glenn Rathke. What it was a methodology to background fetch. In essence, it'll fetch one page of, say, 500 records, show them to the screen almost immediately, and then in the background continue to load the rest of the records into the table. Okay? And what that does there is that it allows you to present the data to the individual quickly so he doesn't think something's broke. And in the background thread or a background process, you continue to load the records in there so he can start searching for stuff or look for things that he wants to look for.
Hey, Frank, do you have the online training? Because he goes through that.
I don't know if he has that.
No, he does. Because
oh, he does. Okay, yeah, go through that. And what I'm going to do is take that same example, Frank, and I'm going to do it via this classes with the option to fill it completely as well as the option to page it. Well, I'll call it paging. And how many pages that you want max. Okay, Frank does not have Glenn's training. Okay. But I'll put up a set of classes for that, okay? And we'll also get it in there. So one of the articles that I'll put together for Dev Roadmaps is how to do that, okay? With a zip download of the base classes like I have here. But I'll do it up on Dev Roadmaps. It'll also be part of Glenn's training stuff as well, so we'll do both. But basically, this is obviously not a OOP purist benefit. There's a lot of things, obviously, that Stephen is teaching me and showing me that can be done that are opening up little doors that I'm getting through. But it sure is opening up. Is there any code maybe? How will it be on my site? Yeah, I can do that, Frank. Probably not this weekend. I've got half a dozen things to get done, but soon, yeah.
Just to clarify, I'm no class purist. I just know a little bit.
Obviously, he knows just a little bit more than me.
Maybe. But not about
It's an object of your imagination, dude.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Anyway, thank y'all for being here today. Appreciate the effort.
And you got some claps?
Yeah, well, yeah. Tony's giving me the clap.
Andy. It's great. It's really good.
I appreciate y'all being here. Get some rest, Stephen. You're gonna get cranky in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't wake up the household now.
Yeah, y'all be good at it.
I will. Thank you. Bye all.
Thanks again for attending, guys.
All right, talk at you later.